Welcome to the Bookman's Corner. I'm Lois Lindstrom. We have a terrific show for you. My two guest authors wrote the New York Times best-selling book, Impossible Odds, The Kidnapping of Jessica Buchanan and Her Dramatic Rescue by SEAL Team 6. And I want to welcome this dynamic married duo to our studio in Arlington, Virginia. Nice to have you here, Jessica Buchanan and Eric Landemalm.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you. Their true story, described as spellbinding by the New York Journal of Books, tells the story of 32-year-old Jessica Buchanan, an American humanitarian aid worker who was kidnapped at gunpoint on October 25, 2011, and held for ransom by a band of Somali pirates in Africa. For 3 months, Jessica was terrorized by gangsters, held in filthy conditions, and starved while her health steadily deteriorated. Her adoring husband, Eric, worked tirelessly to bring her home. After 93 days of fruitless negotiations, and with Jessica's medical state becoming a life or death issue, President Barack Obama ordered Navy SEAL Team 6 to attempt a rescue operation. In riveting detail, Jessica and her husband, Eric, share their journey over those torturous months. Together, they relate the events prior to the kidnapping, the drama of Jessica's fight to stay alive, and Eric's efforts to bolster support for the hunt for her and communicate with all parties involved. Their story is a deeply personal look at triumph over impossible odds. Jessica, how did you start your life in Kenya as a grade school teacher and then end up in Somalia working for a Danish NGO as a humanitarian aid worker?
Well, I studied education in college and was lucky enough to score a student teaching position in Nairobi, Kenya at an international school. So I started just teaching 4th grade and enjoyed it immensely. And then one Saturday night, I ended up meeting Eric while I was out with some friends in Nairobi, and kind of the rest was history. We began dating, and about a year and a half later, we ended up getting married on the Kenyan coast.
Okay.
Eric was working in Somalia, based in Somaliland up in the north, and so I moved up there with him after we got married, and ended up getting a job as an education advisor for a Danish organization.
Okay, interesting. Now, I think your book is about courage, especially during the difficult, if not impossible, circumstances. I mean, discuss your first mission to Africa. I found that very fascinating because you were in Africa before you started off as a teacher there, right?
Yeah, I'd been a couple of times. I started off just volunteering in South Sudan, just over the Ugandan border. I went with a friend, a fellow educator, and we were going to be working in orphanages for the summer. Unfortunately, that experience got cut short, and it was quite dramatic. We got caught in a crossfire of a raid in the community that we were staying in by the Lord's Resistance Army, who had been terrorizing that region for a while. It was quite scary, but it also kind of provided a very realistic look of what these people are going through.
And so you must have been very frightened, and but you did not scare you to go back.
I learned some valuable lessons in terms of my own personal security and what to do. So no, it didn't scare me in terms of not wanting to go back. It just kind of drove me further into wanting to go back and work.
Interesting. Now, what made you decide to write Impossible Odds? I mean, was it difficult to revisit such a traumatic incident in your lives? I mean, I want you to answer this question, and you also, Eric.
It took me a long time to come to the decision to write Impossible Odds. As you can imagine, as soon as my rescue and my rehabilitation started, people were quietly, but suggesting that we put this pen to paper, and I just wasn't ready.
So how long did you wait before starting the book?
It took about close to a year before I felt ready enough to sit down, and the whole point of writing it was for our son to have something to look back on, and also to be able to say thank you to all the people that had worked endlessly and tirelessly to get me out.
And what did you think, Eric, about writing the book?
No, I felt like as long as Jess could feel confident doing it and that it wouldn't have a negative impact on her, then I felt like it was the right thing to do, because just like Jess said, we had so many people that had worked, and I knew the hours they had put in, many of them, and a lot of the people that actually we have so much to thank you. say thank you to. We will never get the chance to say thank you, meet them
Yes,
in
yes. So this
person.
is a great
So
way to do it,
it's-
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Eric, how did the writer Anthony Flacco assist you in writing your book? Did you?
We never met Anthony prior to writing the book,
Okay.
so we were recommended to contact him, so we did. And once we had talked with him a bit, we felt like, I think he can actually, even though we haven't met, I think he will understand us in a good enough way. And so we began to have long hours of Skype calls.
Okay.
We were still in Kenya
yeah.
at the time. Of
Oh, you
writing
were
the
still in
book.
Kenya at the
Yeah,
time.
we had
Okay.
returned to
In the
Kenya.
States.
And we started to kind of sit and talk through day by day. And luckily enough, Jess has a fantastic memory, and I had day by day during the kidnapping, I had written down anything that happened.
And that's good. You had a little bit of a journal then of what happened.
Yeah, and a kind of precise journal. So the good thing with that was that he was able to kind of get us to talk about the experience in a way that we probably wouldn't have done.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Interesting. Now, how is the book organized? I mean, it is told from the point of view from both of you, isn't it? So,
And then there's a third person point of view in terms of covering kind of what was going on behind the scenes with the FBI and family, and towards the end, the SEAL Team 6.
yes, it's a great read. I mean, I must say, it's very dramatic, and you just get caught up in it. Well, before we just discuss more of your book, I'm curious, do either of you have a close family member who had a humanitarian aid background?
No, actually.
So you both came into this field on your own in a way,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, Eric, what about the life of the Danish citizen Paul, Jessica's male colleague, who was also held captive at the same time as Jessica? What were his views about this book?
I don't know, to be honest. I haven't talked with Paul after the rescue, and
Okay.
so I wouldn't know.
Okay, so it's just a case of you just decided to keep going with your lives and not,
Yeah.
Okay. Now, Jessica, tell us about the vivid cast of characters who kidnapped you. Describe a couple of the more memorable ones. I remember reading about the Somali man who was very kind to you, but then there was another one who was extremely scary. It's like he was about ready to rape you.
Yeah.
So describe what those two men were like.
Yeah. Well, the nicer one, we had nicknames for everybody so that we could kind of talk about them without them knowing it. And so we nicknamed him Helper because
Helper.
he was a helper of sorts. He would come with a mango, for instance, or he would
A piece of fruit for you. Okay.
Or later on, as the months wore on, he had information about what was going on, and he spoke a little bit of English, so that helped as well, just to give you somebody to communicate with. I also deeply believe that he stayed very close to me, so he slept next to me every night, and I think he did that as a way to protect me from
Great.
what
And you could trust
what
him.
else. As much as I could trust my kidnappers, yeah, I could. And I really believed that he was empathetic towards us, and he was there because he needed the money. He had 8
So he
kids.
was like a driver or something.
He
right?
was a driver.
Okay.
He most of the time wasn't armed. He displayed a lot of negative feelings towards the other men when
Okay.
our treatment wasn't
Good.
very good. Yeah.
Now, what about the most difficult man in the group?
I think probably that would be Abdi, who was there for only about half of the.
His name was Abdi.
Abdi.
And why
he
was-
was the head of the militia, as he called himself, and he had mental problems.
And he was very aggressive, wasn't he?
He was very aggressive, very unstable, high on this amphetamine type drug, cat.
Cat, yeah.
So he was high all the time, very explosive, and I never knew what to expect from him.
Yes, yes.
And he threatened us a lot. So.
Well, Eric, I found it interesting that all of your family members were told to keep absolutely silent in order to help the government negotiate and take steps during this hostage crisis. I mean, no one was allowed to talk to anyone. Is that typical protocol in these kidnapping situations?
I wouldn't know how it is for other people, but more or less we made a decision very quickly. We both had FBI working on the U.S. government side. They were the focal agency. And then we also had our own team, so to say, family team from Jess' organization, and so on. And so more or less we had it running on different levels, and my part was to kind of to be talking with the family, both my own family and Jess' family,
Okay.
and come up with kind of how we wanted to treat the situation.
Yes, yes, yes.
And for us, it was very important to not say more than needed.
Exactly,
And,
and keep it kind of quiet, not get the publicity on it.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, Jessica, the conditions of your captivity were extremely difficult and are described in vivid detail in this book. What were the 3 worst things about your captivity that viewers would find most distressing?
I think the first one was that we were never inside. We were never held in a room or in any kind of structure. I was outside the entire time.
Outside.
Outside, no
whether,
shelter.
Whether it was raining, whether it was extremely hot, whatever, you were out there,
Yeah,
right?
we were out there in the elements.
So you
and
were
it was
sleeping
rough.
on the ground, right?
Yeah, I mean, I had a very thin mat, like a plastic mat, but I was sleeping in dirt the entire time. The second part was washing. That was incredibly difficult. The water that they did give me to wash with was very, very dirty. And so maybe every couple of days I would get a liter of water. And so trying to wash my hair or, wash my body. And then the fact that I'm surrounded by men the entire time, trying to wash yourself discreetly, it was really difficult. And then, of course, the main question people have for me is about food.
Yeah.
I lost about 35 pounds within the course of the 3 months that I was held. I ate small tins of tuna fish, just out of the tin.
Any vegetables?
No, not until day 62. I do believe I got a couple of tomatoes. It actually was Christmas Day when I got a couple of tomatoes.
And fruit?
Every once in a while, Helper would bring us a mango. Towards the end, I think we had a piece of watermelon, but that's about it.
And you were
So
drinking water, I guess.
I did get water for the most part.
But you weren't sure that was clean, right?
Most of the time, they did bring us bottled water. I will give them that.
Okay.
But that was, for them because they didn't want us getting too sick.
Yeah, exactly. You said you were deeply concerned about the child soldiers in Africa. Can you describe how these children are abducted and then trained to be soldiers at the tender age of 7 or 8 years old or something?
I think it's very different in different parts of Africa, and I'm by no means an expert, but that is what I was interested in this phenomenon that was happening in northern Uganda when I first started visiting Africa. In Somalia, it's a bit different in terms of these kids are kind of sent in to work like in this gang because their families need the money. So they're basically just child soldiers and child workers.
They're like slaves in a way, right?
You could probably describe it that way, yeah. And the youngest boy that was holding me hostage was about 9-10 years old.
Wow. And they're also on these drugs, right? That's what
They do. They chew this cat, this leaf, and it produces the same effect as an amphetamine, and then it has a really hard letdown. And so
these children are like chewing speed, basically, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Now, Eric, can you describe how the 24 Navy SEALs were dispatched and how the successful mission took place to rescue your wife?
Yeah, more or less how we describe it in the book is actually that Jess and I, we, out of respect to the people that did this, we actually more or less told the writer that you need to find the facts yourself. We can only give you what is out there in open media. And that kind of third person talking about how they did it in the book is actually not Jess and I talking. It's from what the writer has found.
Okay.
And we don't want to, so to say, put these men in any kind of danger on how they do their missions.
Okay, so you went. It was very carefully constructed what you're going to say about these men, right, and how they did it, right? You didn't want to get.
Well, I mean, we could have written whatever we wanted, but out of respect, we didn't want to go that way.
I see.
So I wouldn't know in detail how they did it, but I know
I certainly don't.
No, what we do know is that they're amazing people and that they did this and that, I got my wife back and...
Unharmed. That's an incredible thing. What do you hope readers will take away from reading Impossible Odds?
I think it's important to realize that, we can make it through some incredibly difficult circumstances. And if you just reach deep down inside yourself, there are a lot of resources that maybe you don't realize that you have.
You're stronger than you think you are, right?
Absolutely. Also, something that's very important on a more technical side to us is to promote people continuing on in development. The reason things like this happen is because people are in such dire circumstances, and
they're desperate, right?
They are very desperate. I mean, I don't know what it feels like to, go days and weeks on end without food, and to watch, my family members dying from a very curable disease, So
no medicine, right?
Yeah, it's, I'm in no way condoning what they've done, but I also can't say that if I wasn't one of them, maybe I wouldn't have made the same decision, So we just don't know. It's a different perspective. So we just always try to promote the message that people need to keep helping wherever they can.
Yes, that's excellent. That's excellent. Well, I found the chapter 17 riveting because of your descriptions, Eric. You take us back to that point in time, because everyone was praying. I mean, a lot of people were not particularly religious, but everyone seemed like to be. Everyone had the ability to show a lot of patience. But privately, you wanted to lead a private attack to get Jessica, didn't you? Because you were so conflicted about the whole thing, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's hard to say now when we're sitting in. It's even hard for me to go back to that part when you feel like everything that you have is out there and you cannot do anything about it. And usually I would be a person that would kind of deal with the situation and just get it done with.
Yes.
And this was probably the first time in my life where I had actually been confronted with a situation that if I did that, I would probably die out there, and it would probably put Jess in more danger, because at the end of the day, the me going in with some people that had kind of potentially said that they could go with me and so on, it would not have been a successful mission.
So these were dangerous men, and it was just, you had to have the right military option there.
Yeah.
Well, Jessica, can you describe the scene on page 162 of your book when Abdi took a stick and started hitting Paul, screaming, "Where is the big money? Where is the big money?" I mean, you must have felt, having your colleague beat, you must have felt terrible.
Yeah, I just remember sitting there under a tree just weeping because I didn't know where it was going to end. I didn't know how it was going to end. And then after that, he made both of us, kind of marched us out into the desert with one other soldier, if you will. They were both heavily armed, and I didn't know how it was going to go down. And so he would make one of us walk in a circle while he berated the other one.
Really?
And then it was Paul's turn to go walk, and then he was screaming at me that he wanted, I think it was $18 million at that point, or he was going to cut off our heads in 7 days. And then he would change his mind and say, no, it would just be no food and water, and
he'll punish you that way. No food and water tonight.
Either way, it was a bad deal.
Well, that's what I remember vividly reading, that he was screaming, "I get 18 million in 7 days, or I cut off both of your heads."
Yeah.
I mean, what were you thinking at that point?
Oh, that there's no way out of this.
You felt despair, I guess. Yeah.
This is so over. Like, I don't know how long it's going to last, but it's not going to end well.
Now, Jessica, I thought you did a great job of containing yourself. I mean, you knew that once you started screaming, it would be all over. And what motivated you to be so calm?
I wanted to live.
And so then they also hated for you to cry, right? So they started
always
poking you with sticks if you started crying, right?
Oh yeah, or just they would punish Paul because they felt like it was his fault for some reason. They had this thought in their heads that he was whispering things to me to make me upset. And so then the punishment was always separating us, or whatever would happen to Paul. So you just kind of have to keep yourself together. And every once in a while I would ask them if I could go to the toilet and go stand behind a tree and just sob.
Yes, I guess. Oh my goodness. So I was wondering if we could see some photographs from that are in this book, and you could narrate what we see here. And we look at the screen, and this is the two of you married in Africa, right?
Yeah, we got married on the Kenyan coast in Mombasa, and so.
What year is this?
2009.
Yeah.
2009.
Yeah, it feels like a lifetime ago.
So you're so carefree, right?
so carefree. It was a wonderful, wonderful day.
And what about the next slide?
Yeah, that was in Kenya. Eric and I.
You were with a young man, a boy in Kenya.
Yeah, yeah. Eric and I were just out taking a hike, and I think it was, when we first started dating. Actually, it was a really long time ago.
And you felt safe, right?
Oh yeah. I mean, Kenya, I think will always feel like my home.
Okay. So so how about the next picture? This is you, Eric, right?
That's me, yes, with the former president of Puntland, which is up in the northeast of Somalia.
And you're negotiating or talking about the kidnapping?
No. This is
before.
prior to the kidnapping. This is actually back in 2008, I think,
Okay.
or 2007 maybe.
Okay.
So my job was to assist the government with building up the judiciary sector in that part of the country.
Okay. Very good. And so, this was a very sad photo of all the mining victims, right?
Yeah, part of what I did for my organization was community safety, and we did mine risk education in the communities because there are a lot of leftover explosives from the Civil War. So unfortunately, these are all community members that have been affected negatively by UXOs or things that have been left over, but we all got together to celebrate, if you will, and raise awareness. So this is a Mine Action Day.
Okay. And then I think we have another slide here. This is a very scary one with weapons, right?
Yeah.
Correct. Yeah. This is more or less. These guys were not part of the kidnapping in any way, but more or less it shows more how the guys that held Jess, how they were armed, and
This is a good example of what they look like in a way, right?
yeah.
Okay. Okay. And this I thought was a very good photograph to show how desolate it all in the desert is in Somalia.
It is very,
A
very
road
much
to
so.
nowhere, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's just mile after mile of nothing but scrub.
Eric, you knew that Jessica needed her meds. I mean, what were you doing to supply her medicine? Because she had a thyroid issue, right?
Correct. Yeah. From the beginning, I had to talk with FBI and the hostage negotiation team, and we needed to get medicines. So I went to her doctors and kind of explained the situation in a delicate way. In the beginning, I just said that she was still in Somalia, which I also told a lot of our friends that she was still there working, and nothing had happened and so on. But after some time, I had to tell them what the reason was, because I couldn't get drugs on a weekly basis, but we needed a lot of them to kind of send in to care packages to Jess.
Did she get those care packages?
No.
She never got them. So
No.
that's why you were getting weaker and weaker and weaker, right? Because you had the
I had a
thyroid.
thyroid condition, and
And on top of that, then you had a bladder infection.
I got a urinary tract infection.
Urinary tract infection. And so
Yeah.
you're just getting sicker and sicker, and
Yeah.
your temperature's going up, right?
Absolutely. I mean, these infections are incredibly painful when they go untreated. And,
Yes, yes.
Fevers, all kinds of things. And you can imagine the conditions were so filthy.
Yes.
And so
Very
kept getting
tough,
worse.
very
Yeah.
tough. I found it interesting, Jessica, that you became the cook for the kidnappers. How did that happen?
Well, it came out of boredom, and also it came from this thought that I needed to learn how to survive out in the desert. If I was going to spend a lot of time out there, I needed to figure out how to feed myself.
Right.
Largely out of boredom, though, Paul and I learned how to make bread underground, basically, by cooking
Underground?
it with hot coals and burying it in the sand, and it became our morning routine. And after such a long time spent with the same amount of people, you do build up some sort of rapport and some sort of camaraderie, even if it is kind of a twisted situation. So, yeah, we ended up getting bread duty in the morning.
Good. Now, Jessica, what did you think when Jabril said they were making a video that would speed up negotiations? I mean, how did you feel at that point?
Well, all I could think about was what Eric and my family how they were going to react, because it just looked like those cliche kind of terrorist videos that you see on the internet. I'm standing there making a plea for my life, and I have two very heavily armed men pointing guns at me, and all I could think about was their reaction, because
This was like a proof of life video,
It
right?
was, yeah.
So you saw the video, right? You saw your
Correct.
wife, looking so thin and frail and frightened, and
Yeah.
that must have killed you. You must have felt so.
Both yes and no. It killed me to see that that she was in that situation, but at the same time, it actually strengthened us because she looked healthier than what we had thought. You go
Okay.
to the extremes when something like this happens. You have no idea what's going on.
Okay,
Uh,
okay.
Day after day, month after month, almost death. And this was about 1.5 months in, and we knew that a video would come, and we had heard it from sources. And once it actually came, I was a bit relieved that she wasn't sitting in a even worse situation in a corner of a house or
That's
something.
right. Now, Jessica, how did you handle the African men's advances on you? I mean, the kidnappers weren't they trying to paw on you and such?
Well, there were a few that definitely made advances. One was disappointing because he was the only person that really spoke English, and he was supposed to be kind of our confidant. And I just kept appealing to him that I was a married woman and that he could not, violate me because of he was an upstanding man who was married as well, and and just try so hard to remove myself from the situations and so on. So it was
But you had to be careful not to make him mad, right? You had to do it in a
Yeah.
very diplomatic way, right?
sure, I didn't want to embarrass him.
Right. Now, Jessica, I thought it was interesting. You used a pen light to go to the potty at night, and that alerted the Navy SEALs about your exact location.
That gave them, yeah, exactly. Unbeknownst to me, I had no idea that they were out there. The reason I had the pen light was so that the kidnappers would know that I hadn't tried to escape.
So were you just flashing it?
I was just at the nearest bush flashing it so that they would see that I was there.
And now, Eric, where can our viewers find your book?
I think Amazon is probably the safest bet.
Amazon?
And then Barnes & Noble and any kind of local store. You can, if it's not there, you can always order it there.
Okay, and then you do have a website that tells about your story,
We
too.
do www.jessbuchanan, buchanan.com, and also we can be contacted there if somebody would like us to come and speak at one of their events.
Okay. Well, it's been wonderful having you here today.
Thank you
you
so
so
much.
much
Thank
for
you.
being on the Bookman's Corner. Please join us again next month for a new edition of the Bookman's Corner. I'm Lois Lindstrom.